If you like to read and you're an MCC student, faculty, or staff member, you need to know about a program at the college called College in Context. It brings all interested members of the MCC community together around a common book during a given academic quarter. In many ways, it's MCC's largest learning community. College in Context is the topic, a novel way to read, if you'll pardon the pun. I'm Kent Pavelka, your host, and this is Metro and More. Greetings from the set of Metro and More at Metropolitan Community College, serving more than 50,000 students with over 120 programs at our 8 locations in the daytime, evening, weekends, or online. And with me in studio are MCC English instructors Kimberly Armstrong and Steve Lovett, here to discuss MCC's College in Context reading program. Anxious to learn all about this brand new addition to the MCC opportunities out there for the students, mainly the staff and the students here at MCC, and also the community at large. We'll talk in detail about College in Context. First of all, a little bit of background about you guys. Kim, how long have you been at the college, and how did you get here, that kind of thing?
Well, this is my 3rd year at Metro, and I got here. I am originally from Omaha, but I bounced around for a little bit after college. I spent 1 year in France, and 2 years in Texas, and then 8 years in Connecticut. And now I'm back with a PhD in hand and excited to teach here for all of our great students.
Dr. Armstrong, where did you get your PhD?
The University of Connecticut.
Wow, good for you.
Huskies, yeah.
Go Huskies, or go Huskers.
Something, yeah, there's a joke there.
Steve, how long have you been here?
I've been full-time with the college 11 years, I believe. I started out part-time teaching English as a second language, and then working as an adjunct around 2000, 2001. And I'm in the English department. I did get the PhD from the Huskers, so we have Huskies and Husker PhDs here.
Well, I don't have a PhD, so I'm sorry. Doctors, Lovett and Armstrong.
Yeah.
Very good. Are you an Omaha guy, or?
I grew up in Sioux Falls, South Dakota.
Yeah.
Yep, I moved here in '98.
Very good. It's good to have you here. We want to talk about College in Context. I guess I'll just throw it out there. What is it? What is College in Context?
Reading series that is, like you said, it's going to be 1 book for the fall quarter and 1 book for the spring quarter every year. And we're picking out books for faculty and staff, Metro employees to read, but also, like you said, community members to read, that all help people to kind of understand higher education in larger contexts. So the economy and what's going on politically and culturally and socially, and the effects that those things have both on higher ed and the students that we serve.
Mm-hmm. And this is brand new. I mean, we're talking about implementation of the program in the fall quarter of 2017.
Yes, yeah. So for the fall, we're really excited. Our first books for this year, we decided to center them around poverty and students who are dealing with poverty and all the kinds of multitude of issues that raises for a student in a higher education classroom. So we're going to have a variety of ways that people can engage with us. So if people can only engage with us online, we have our Facebook group where we'll have discussions. We also have a Blackboard course that MCC employees and staff can join and have a little bit more closed discussion. We'll also have small group discussions on each of the 3 major campuses. That'll be throughout the quarter. And our last big event this quarter will be a large panel discussion. And we're really excited about that. It'll be towards the end of the quarter, and we have a few people already confirmed for that. Rick Kalowski, who's a state senator and also the former principal of Millard West, will be joining us, and Brad Ekwerekwu, who's a talent advisor for Avenue Scholars, will be joining us there, and we'll be digging into these kind of issues of for-profit colleges and student financial aid and all kinds of this big web of issues that surround poverty.
It's an interesting concept, College in Context, in that you decided to focus on higher education, which makes sense. You know, But what is the genesis of this kind of a program?
You know, recent months, when people talk about larger issues, it seems that not everyone is particularly informed on the things that they're talking about. They're not necessarily exhibiting the kind of critical thinking skills that we're trying to teach at Metro Community College and practice ourselves. And kind of a hallmark of critical thinking is to look at things from a broader perspective, from the larger context in which they function. So higher education, including Metro Community College, does not exist in a vacuum. Discussions that are going on nationally, politically, discussions at the state level, state budgets affect higher education in the state, and our recent state budget issues have had an effect on higher education in the state of Nebraska. And the more people, including voters, the more people, including community members, decision makers, people on governing boards, administrators, and the like, more people who are aware of the larger trends that are going on in terms of workforce and economic opportunities and pressures, the better decisions will be made ultimately. And that's a good thing for everyone. This book specifically, I was in my car and heard an interview on NPR with the author, and clearly very well-researched work. She's the author of our first book for the fall quarter is Tracy McMillan Cottom, and she's a sociology professor. And she worked at two for-profit colleges, cosmetology school and a technical college. And that was before she started work on her sociology PhD. And she used higher education as a subject for her dissertation in sociology. And so she has both the academic research side and the personal experience that she draws from. And that really struck me, that interview struck me, and she was very thoughtful and knowledgeable on the subject. So I went and got a copy of the book, and
then he came to us at the Institute for Cultural Connections, which is a faculty-driven organization on campus. And we've done a lot of things, especially putting on art shows. We celebrate every year student successes, like if they've won a photography prize or won the truck driving rodeo, and all kinds of things like that. We also host a culture camp every year, and our real goal is to get more culture into the classroom, to get our instructors and our whole campus really to be thinking more about culture, and I interpret that in kind of a broad way, right? Not just art, but also like what cultures are students coming from, and all of that kind of issue. So we thought it would be a great way to partner with Steve to build a program where we could bring us all together to better understand the context that we're working within, the culture of higher education. Sometimes, it's easy to say, that's how we've done it, and not be up to date on what is happening in other schools or what students are experiencing outside of the classroom that maybe they don't want to tell you. So this is a space where we can hopefully share these kind of moments and challenge ourselves to keep learning and keep doing things new ways.
Sure.
Yeah.
I guess that's what I was getting at when I asked about the genesis of this is where did you get the idea on how you've put it together to share it? I mean, it's not in the classroom, it's outside the classroom, online, the panels, the discussions, and the community on Facebook. It's kind of an interesting conglomeration of factors to present to the community that way.
Yeah, and I would say, I think how we came to that is because sometimes when there's one panel, our teachers and our staff work kind of crazy hours, right? Some of us might be teaching on Wednesday at 6 p.m. and so they might not be able to make that panel. And so we wanted it to be approachable for people who are maybe adjuncts and teaching at 3 schools and running in between. They could still join us online and talk about those issues. For people who only teach at night or or who only teach during the day and don't have childcare at night. So we were just trying to set up a lot of avenues so that we can get a really broad swath. Even if you can't take time off from your work during the day, you can read the book and hop on the Blackboard site at night to have a discussion with your coworkers about what's happening on campuses.
Well, I think it's really cool that you included the public via the Facebook part of this, because probably most of our viewers are not faculty or staff.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was a great stroke to think, well, let's have the community know what we're talking about here and what where we're trying to go with education, about education, right?
Right, and if Metro's mission is to be known to the public, we need to include them, right? So that was kind of our goal, and hopefully some of these people that we're going to have come speak to us have a really big draw to the general public, are pretty interesting to them, and have a great perspective that the community needs to know about higher education as well.
So you envision this program going in perpetuity? Is there enough material to do 2 books a year?
Oh gosh, yes, yeah.
Yep. If you go to Amazon and click on this title, and you look at customers who purchased this item also purchased, that's quite the list.
What would you higher education books? Higher education, is that what you're saying? The search for
the sociology of higher education, the especially the economic aspect of it, because if anyone has attended college recently or sent their kids to college, that price tag is pretty hefty, and a lot of attention is being paid to the student loans that people that pile up over the course of an education. Not so much at Metro Community College, because we have very affordable tuition, but lots of other colleges have a pretty high price tag, and so that's generated a lot of interest in the cost of higher ed, and really that's the question that one of the questions that Cottam asks in her book is who's paying for this, and she points out how in the past the state and industry kind of saw higher education as a public good and saw it as an investment. And then in recent history, there's been less and less investment from public funding sources. So who's then, on whose shoulders do we place the responsibility? And more it's on the individual. So through student loans, and those pile up, and that has an effect on their success overall. And it's a very personal topic for a lot of people.
Sure. That's the synopsis of the book right there, right?
That's
Pretty
part
much.
of it. She tackles a lot. She
Yeah.
tackles a lot.
Where does she go in terms of a conclusion on how to deal with the problems that she stipulates?
I'm not sure she has a great solution yet.
She just points out the issue.
I think what she wants us to be thinking about is these questions, right? I don't think she has a great solution, like here's where we should get our student loans from, or but she wants us to think really critically about what the role, especially of those very expensive institutions, are.
For profit.
Yeah, especially the for-profit ones. But I think the questions kind of trickle over into a lot of other kinds of places too.
I'm assuming that she's not a champion of for-profit.
No, she is not.
No, and she does make a nice distinction between kind of for-profit institutions that have been in the past where it was not necessarily a publicly traded corporation, essentially, because there was a point at which they began selling shares. These corporations went public, and it turned into a much more intense for-profit motive that is based on shareholder interests. And no, she's not a fan. She was just quoted. There's the Atlantic Monthly just turned to her as the expert on for-profit colleges in a story they ran just this week about a new person added to the Department of Education, and their role is to regulate for-profit colleges, but they worked for a for-profit college. So people raise concerns about the ability of someone who comes from that industry to fairly and effectively regulate that same industry.
You got to wonder about agenda.
You do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So she makes the distinction between publicly traded for-profit enterprises in higher education versus privately held.
Well,
and the conclusion is for-profit, publicly traded is worse than
Well,
the
it's
other.
more dangerous, right? That it tends to answer to shareholder needs, not responding to student needs. And the money coming in from the federal government is what funds everything. So she talks a lot about the sales strategies that they use. And I think that's a really important part of the book, the way students are sold on college. And that is something we can talk about on this campus too. How we attract them, she talks about this sort of like language of like closing the deal, you know. And so it's really, even if we're not a for-profit college, I think some of the language and issues in that book are ones that our students have faced. I know I've had students who came here after a for-profit college closed and had to just restart their whole educations again, but now with a lot of debt. And knowing what he went through, that student, and how he's maybe trying to recover from that is, I think, going to make me a better teacher for him in the classroom, too.
Well, when you get down to the bottom line here, we're talking about incurring debt versus not incurring as much debt, right? Not attacking necessarily the credibility of the content. It's price, right? Primarily.
That's a big part of it.
Yeah, price and
Yeah.
outcome.
Yeah.
Outcome in what respect?
Well, completion rates. One of the things that the Atlantic Monthly's story just pointed out that the for-profit institution their new regulator came from was dinged by the federal government for misrepresenting, employment data, for example. So colleges are judged based on their completion rates and the employability of their graduates. So how many of their students are, completing their degrees, earning a living wage afterwards, and you have to report those numbers to the federal government, and with numbers you can be forthright and transparent and honest with your numbers, or you can be less than that.
Creative.
Yeah, you can be creative in a very bad way.
Yeah.
So,
So is the issue with respect to that point that there are too many offerings that really there isn't a market for employability, or is it that it's low wages, or
one of the things she points out is the when a for-profit college advertises some of its programs, it'll say things like, the health industry needs lots of employees, but the degrees that they're offering are in kind of entry-level jobs and not necessarily the kinds of jobs that are highly sought after or financially rewarding, for example.
Yeah, so it seems like the answer to that would be it's multifaceted, right? That maybe it's preparing you for a job that's less desirable or pays less, but it also might be that it doesn't necessarily prepare you to take a licensing exam that your state needs, or that the reputation isn't good enough to get you a job in your community from that like online school especially.
Well, in the interest of being a public service here, what are the red flags for people that are shopping for higher education, with respect to these problems?
If you're discouraged from bringing your parents along on the campus visit, that's a red flag. If you're discouraged, it's anything, you're buying a used car, anything that's a red flag when you're buying a car. Same
Close the deal today.
Right,
Yeah.
coffees for closers. If you're experiencing someone who's doing a hard sell, or if all of the questions that they're asking you as they give you the campus tour, it would be socially awkward to say anything other than yes, that's probably a red flag.
Yeah, that's one that I thought was especially interesting, right? So they lead you to think that this is the best school. Can't you see yourself studying here? Can't you see yourself in that classroom? Things that it would be very hard to say no to a total stranger. You would feel very rude, right? So there are these ways that they kind of lead you along. It's like leading a lamb to slaughter, maybe. It's a bad metaphor. Yeah.
You can also look at, the percentage of instructors who are full-time versus part-time. If an institution relies almost exclusively on part-time adjunct instructors, maybe they're investing less money in your education and more money in their marketing strategies, for example. That's one of the statistics that she points out in the book, that some for-profit colleges will invest larger chunks of their budget in the advertising and marketing than they do in the actual instruction.
Yeah.
So what's the, where is the control? Are there any programs in place with the government that?
The previous administration instituted more control over the for-profit industry, and the day after the current president was elected, the stock market, for-profit colleges' stock prices increased, which might suggest their anticipation that regulations from the federal level would be loosened and they'd be better able to turn a higher profit.
So,
What would the other side of the argument be?
yeah, I think the for-profit colleges argue that they fill a need, right? That there are students who need to take only online classes, that there are students who wouldn't otherwise be able to graduate without them, who don't qualify to get a 4-year degree who aren't prepared maybe, or don't have the test scores to go to some of these places. But there's a flexibility inherent in them, or that they offer like strong trades backgrounds. I know a lot of the culinary schools are for-profit. Ours isn't though, but they can be expensive. Some of those brand name culinary schools that have that for-profit with them, that maybe the students graduate with a lot more debt than they can pay off reasonably in the first years of being a chef. But I think that they would argue they're filling a need, being able to work with students and having people who really understand financial aid, and that they definitely do well. They know how to get their students financial aid.
They do.
Yes.
Doesn't that mitigate the student loan issue in this respect?
The financial aid ends up being student loans, right?
Loans.
So yeah, and so that's something that a student who's coming new to these needs to really be looking at. What is my loan number? What will it actually look like to pay that off afterwards?
Well, it would seem to me that common sense would dictate that if I'm shopping for a higher education opportunity, that there'd be two things I'd look at, and that is cost, and I'd want to compare it, and then quality of the programming. Now you used, everything you mentioned a minute ago, online, Metropolitan Community College offers, the trades, those focused areas of study that are going to get you a career. That's what Metropolitan Community College is all about. And then price. I mean, so how do you you can compare price, but how do you compare quality?
And that's a great question. Especially how does a student do that, right? And I think that that's part of the reason why these for-profits kind of discourage you from bringing your parents along. And you maybe don't have the experience to know, just because they can show you one lovely room doesn't mean they have the industry connections, or that maybe another program might have, or anything like that. So I try to, because I don't know how a student does evaluate quality. That would be something very difficult for someone just starting out in school to do, I think.
There's a lot more, and so like U.S. News and World Report, for example, will run its best colleges of this or that, and that's kind of like the standard, established, traditional route. What she does a really good job of in this book is pointing out how somebody from a middle-class background is pretty well prepared to deal with the bureaucratic sort of admissions requirements at a traditional state-funded institution or even a private institution, and that they're very comfortable with that. Their parents are very helpful in getting them through the admissions process. There are some populations in our country who don't come from those backgrounds and don't have that sort of experience negotiating and working through a admissions process. The for-profit colleges, she points out, do an excellent job of contacting students, walking them through the whole process. Very persistent and aggressive, I guess, in the amount of assistance that they provide students in working their way through admissions, applying for financial aid. If you send your child to a state institution, they'll probably be helpful, but not as helpful as the for-profits have been. So that's one of the
kind of a
things that-
conundrum right there.
It
You
is.
know,
Yeah.
hard to turn down a lot of help.
Yeah,
know?
yeah. Especially when college is new to you or your family doesn't have a lot of background in applying to college. And so she talks about like certain kinds of targets that the for-profits have, and first-generation students are one of them because they are students that maybe need that help walking through all the process of college and can get maybe lost a little bit in the shuffle.
Steve, hold the book up again. It's Lower Ed, the troubling rise of for-profit colleges in the new economy. So this is the first book in the College in Context program. And again, this is a new program. The entire community can embrace it.
Yes.
Faculty,
Yeah.
staff, Metropolitan Community College, online. And so does everybody know about it? Or are we still trying to promote the word here?
We're still promoting.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll be putting flyers out all across campus within the week here.
Yeah.
So what would be the best thing to do for someone an employee that wants to do it, or somebody in the public that wants to get involved this quarter?
Employees can contact either of us through email, or they can just go ahead and register for the staff development course through their My Way page.
So that's what it would say, staff development rather than college in context?
It says college. It says staff development course is like a kind of a category on there, right?
Yeah, so College in Context would be the title of the course, but it would be grouped under the staff development classes.
And what if you don't get signed up or involved immediately? Can you just jump in anytime?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's why we want to have so many points of contact, so that it's something you can jump into, and if you're not interested in the book in the spring, you can kind of step back, but jump back in the,
Sure.
Yeah.
And the Facebook page is for the public. What's College in Context?
College in Context.
Okay.
Yep.
Do it now.
Yeah.
Do it now. School's fall semester's underway. And so you've picked out the book for next spring. What is that?
Yes, it's Sarah Goldrick Robb's book. It's called Paying the Price, and it's all about the sorts of things that students in poverty go through to be able to attend college. And it's really good. It's actually cited a lot in this book, so there's a lot of great connection between the two of
So
them.
are you two the guys that decide what the books are?
There's a few other people who have to go with us, but yeah.
Fun project. No credit involved here, right? Just
Correct.
enlightenment
Yeah.
Yes.
for everybody. Thanks a lot. Appreciate the update. Maybe we can do this more often and talk about each book. That'd be cool.
That'd be great.
Thanks much.
Yeah.
And thank you for being with us on Metro and More. Our goal is to better acquaint you with the mission, leadership, and the reach of the college. I'm Kent Pavelka for Metropolitan Community College. If you have comments or questions about the program, please email us at metrovision@mccneb.edu. Thanks for watching.
This has been a MetroVision production produced by Metropolitan Community College.